want to move on to the next session, which is moving on the wheels of change during COVID-19. Moving on the wheels of change during COVID-19. And to lead this session is Amrita Gupta, the Program Director, Research and Advocacy Communications at Azad and Saka. Amrita?
Hello, everyone. This is a presentation by Azad Foundation and Saka Consulting Wings on the challenges and our way through the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Paridhi and my co-presenter, Amrita. To begin with, Azad Saka are based in India and are working across 5 cities of the country. Women with Wheels is the flagship program through which we have been engaging resource-poor urban women for over a decade to link them with remunerative, dignified livelihoods that allows them to exercise control over their lives and live with dignity. The training is imparted through a right-based transformative pedagogy, introducing the ideas of gender, self, rights, alongside building skills. Saka Consulting is a social enterprise that aims to create sustainable livelihoods and ensures employment of women who have received training under the Women with Wheels program. Saka works both in private and commercial transportation.
If you're looking at the context right now, we know that globally the context has been such that there's been a push back towards the ill-gotten gains that the women have made. So in terms of any kind of equality level gains, those have been pushed back because of the socio-economic challenges that COVID has brought about. That has impacted Azad and Saka as well. The women in Azad and Saka have actually traversed a very, very lot of hindrances to reach the situation where they have become contributors to their household, where they've become primary contributors to their household. But however, with COVID coming in, and with the challenge in the transport industry, where the women with wheels works primarily, with the number of jobs that have been lost, the sector having estimated a loss of 5 trillion almost, Saka has definitely been deeply impacted. And it has been very difficult for these women, as the next video that I will be showing will show. It has been very difficult for these women to actually negotiate the fact that they have lost the initiatives that they had started. Although we have been able to maintain that the situation through contributions, through maintaining their salaries, but it was a tough time. So let me just go over to the video without any more.
इस समय कोरोना वायरस का सीधा असर हमारे कारोबार पर हुआ है, जिसकी वजह से हमारा पूरा रोजगार ठप है और इस महामारी का असर हमारे आर्थिक स्तर पर भी हुआ है।
सभी कहते थे कि भाई ट्रेनिंग आजाद में गाड़ी चला के क्या करेगी, ट्रेनिंग करके ये कुछ और ही जॉब करेगी। मैंने कहा नहीं, मुझे आजाद के साथ ही ट्रेनिंग करनी है और जॉब भी करनी है सखा के साथ। सबने मना भी किए, मेरे हस्बैंड ने भी मना किए, घर वालों ने मना किए, लेकिन मैं नहीं मानी। मैंने कहा मुझे गाड़ी चलानी तो चलानी है। उन्होंने कहा मेरे हस्बैंड ने कहा मैं तुझे छोड़ दूंगा। मैंने कहा ठीक है छोड़ दो, लेकिन मैं गाड़ी चलाऊंगी, सीखूंगी गाड़ी और जॉब करूंगी गाड़ी चलाने की। तभी ये महामारी की वजह से कोई काम नहीं कर पा रही हूँ, क्योंकि कैब भी बंद है और ये महामारी ऐसी कि छुआछूत कैसी होती है तो सरकार ने बंद कर रखा है, इसलिए हम भी बंद है।
कोरोना वायरस से महामारी आई, इसी से मैं तो बहुत परेशान में थी, डिप्रेशन में चला रहा, क्योंकि अभी जो मैं कमर्शियल ड्राइवर हूँ, कैब ड्राइवर हूँ, तो हम लोगों का गाड़ी नहीं बाहर निकल रहे, तो कागज जब नहीं निकले, घर में आदमी नहीं आ रहे, तो लड़का लोग अभी क्या खिलाओ, बहुत टेंशन है।
हम वो महिलाएं हैं जिसके ऊपर हमारा पूरा घर निर्भर है।
So given these challenges, both at the level of an organization and individuals being our drivers, the question in front of us was, how do we move on? Our immediate response was to ensure that our drivers, their families, and the communities that they live in are able to sustain through the urgent pressures and challenges resulting from the lockdown and the pandemic. The drivers led the process in identifying vulnerable families or individuals, linking them with relief work, as we can see in one of the pictures. They reached out to over 31,000 households with support for food security, social security, gender-based violence, and medical emergencies. Secondly, as we all know that the world is going digital and more opportunities became available for online or app-based learning, we utilized this as an opportunity for upskilling. Our drivers have been linked to various courses like English speaking courses, which have been delivered through mobile application-based apps developed in partnership with other organizations. They've also conducted online surveys for community need assessment, focusing on food security, social security, gender-based violence, and this again has been done through a mobile application-based app, which has been designed and developed by Azad. Sorry. As the government started issuing some relaxations, and we were able to resume our services after a lull period of over 3 months. Our first step was to ensure that there's a seven-layer COVID-19 safety in compliance with government guidelines in cabs across the 5 cities that we are in, and at the same time orienting all the drivers about these safeties and the measures that they needed to take. Further, we adapted digital marketing to ensure that we are able to communicate the same to our customers and to keep them informed about these changes. So as every crisis presents us with an opportunity, we got the opportunity to expand to the e-commerce industry, the flourishing e-commerce industry. At the time of the lockdown also, the e-commerce industry had continued delivering essential services. It was at this time that we linked our drivers with companies like Big Basket as delivery executives. Initially, we used 4-wheeler vehicles for delivery, but soon realized that it wasn't cost effective. With this came another shift. We expanded the Women with Wheels program that earlier was training women in 4-wheelers, and we started training in 2-wheelers as well to meet the demands of the e-commerce industry. And soon we started offering these services to big e-commerce giants like Big Basket, Flipkart in the country. Currently, 48 of our drivers have been placed with these companies, and 73 women who are employable, meaning that they have a permanent license, are either undertaking or have completed their training they have completed their 2-wheeler training. So we would like to conclude with how we kept these wheels of change moving in the words of our drivers.
ফাউন্ডেশন থেকে আমাকে হেল্প করে 5,000 টাকা এবং রেশন দেয়, এইভাবেই আমার সংসার চলে। এমনকি অনেক সময় আমরা অনেক বস্তিতে গিয়েও আজাদ ফাউন্ডেশনের তরফ থেকে আমরা রেশন ডিস্ট্রিবিউট করেছি। আর 6 মাসে আমরা মানে মোটামুটি ঘরে বসেছিলাম, এখন আবার রাস্তায় নেমেছি, কিন্তু আজাদ ফাউন্ডেশনের তরফ থেকে আবার প্লাস্টিক গার্ড, স্যানিটাইজার, মাস্ক এগুলো দিয়েই আমরা রাস্তায় নেমেছি।
बिग बास्केट से कहीं से काम आया तो वहाँ पे हमें डिलीवरी करनी थी, होम डिलीवरी। तो हम एक बार तो सोचने लगे कि कोरोना वायरस से तो हम बाहर जा ही नहीं सकते, तो हम जाके होम डिलीवरी करेंगे। तो सबसे मिलेंगे, सबके टच में रहेंगे, तो क्या पता हाँ भी ये कोरोना वायरस हो नहीं जाए। मैं सोचती थी कि कोरोना वायरस को लेकर अगर हम डर जाएंगे तो हम सामने वाले को कैसे समझाएंगे।
শাখা আমাকে কাজ দিয়েছে, এখন হচ্ছে আমি ফ্লিপকার্টে কাজ করছি, আর 1 মাস হয়েছে আমি কাজ করেছি, 1 মাস টাকা পেয়েছি। এখন আমি সংসার সম্পূর্ণ করে আমি নিজের বাড়ি থাকি, এখন হচ্ছে আমি আমার শ্বশুর বাড়ি যাব টাকাটা নিয়ে।
Yeah, thanks a lot, and we can move on to if there are any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Amrita Gupta, the Program Director for Research Advocacy Communications at Azad and Saka, and the panelist Paridi Yadav. I hope I'm pronouncing that very well, Paridi Yadav. Really appreciate your input on the moving the wheels of change during COVID-19. Allow me to read a comment from one of the attendees, and this is from Annie Kazembe. I believe this is in relation to the earlier session what we had, and Annie says it's interesting to hear that it is difficult to organize boda bodas in Uganda. In Malawi, it's equally difficult in all types of transport from buses, minibus, and motorbikes. The most challenging thing is how they can be organized and sustained as a whole. Informal transport sector is owned by, as the whole informal let me read that again. The most challenging thing is on how they can be organized and sustained as the whole informal transport sector is owned by individuals. Most of the owners are either politicians or police personnel. These jobs have no proper contracts and no job security. The sector is very precarious. There is no barriers to entry into the industry as anyone can start the business any day. And for the motorbike riders, they don't have proper training and have no licenses, and yet they do the operations. The most challenging thing is this whole sector is dominated by male and no females. Those are Anne Kazembe's sentiments. I'm also notified that Paridi is joined us together with Amrita, and I don't know if that they have any parting shots.
Thank you, Amrita. So as we saw that, like even though these are the challenges that there have been at the global level, and for us as an organization, we just found ourselves in the center of this, as it's not just that we were tourism based. The people that we have, the drivers, the chauffeurs who have been working with us are from a particular setting, are from extremely vulnerable backgrounds in terms of caste and religion, and being women, most of them are survivors of violence, and who have seen really bad times in their personal lives, have had financial crisis, and or have had to come out of extreme cases of violence. So for them, being a chauffeur has meant much more than just a job. It has given them, economic decision-making power. As we saw in the video, one of the chauffeurs shared with us that they are principal breadwinners for their household. They are the ones managing their families and their entire households. So so as an organization, yes, we did feel a lot of impact because of the tourism sector being in a lull for over a good 3 months when there was a nationwide total lockdown in India, and no transportation was working that time. So of course there was no demand for it. And since, as we saw that, a lot of our business comes from international tourism, international tourists, which had stopped. So from like maybe a month or two before the nationwide lockdown was announced. So it was a good half year that we had to struggle for. So at that time, the challenge in front of us was definitely to keep going, but also to ensure that these drivers, how to retain them, how to ensure that their economic security is maintained, their livelihood is secured. So, and that is what we've tried to present here, the kind of innovations that we were able to make within the transportation sector to keep this going. And now we've been, coming back to our previous work. And so I think the entire lesson that we had out of this was definitely how to explore the transportation sector, what other opportunities it has to give us. And as women chauffeurs, different kind of challenges that they have had during this time. So learning has come out of that to how to address those.
Thank you so much, Paridi, and thank you so much, Amrita Gupta, for such an informative session on moving the wheels of change during COVID-19. Now, if you'll all allow me, I'll very briefly go through I'll just give an overview of what has happened today during our 2020 Women in Transport Conference, today being the Friday, the 27th of November. Now, the first session was about inclusive employment, and the lead for this session was Minaz Sarwa from AN Nisa Taxi. We had the panelist Paul Wafula from Flow Initiative and Sam Clark from TransAid. Now, a brief overview of what happened in that session is that the overall conversation was centered on the strategies that can be employed to ensure more inclusive employment, retention, and promotion of women workers within the public transport system. The key points to take home from this were that TransAid, an NGO that works in the logistics and transport sector in Africa, presented the interventions that are implementing in 3 cities in Africa to help young women living in urban peripheries improve their transport-related skills, therefore improving their experience as transport users and workers. Secondly, Flown Initiative presented outcomes from the research study that one of which was the fact that even though established transport operators believe that women make good workers, the workforce was only 10% female. The second session we had today was interventions for safe walking and cycling. And the session lead for this was Sonal Shah, from the Urban Catalyst. The panelists were Abigail Muigai from Nairobi Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, NAMATA, Chris Cost, Africa Program Director for the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. And just a brief overview of this session was that the session highlighted research showcasing evidence on the safety and security of non-motorized transport. The research projects were keen to identify the travel behaviors and patterns of walking and cycling in India and Kenya. The conversation then concluded on how to move research towards action. Key pointers in this session is that 1, Nairobi is categorized as the 3rd most congested city in the world, costing the economy about $1 billion annually. 2, the transportation sector contributes 27% of greenhouse gas emissions in the world, making it the 2nd largest contributor to emissions, making it even more important to integrate non-motorized transport on our existing roads. The 3rd point here is that the Urban Catalyst presented street design guidelines that mainstreamed women's mobility and access. One guideline was to use public signage that conveys a strong approach to sexual harassment as a way of encouraging behavior change. Our 3rd session for today was Women as Investors in Public Transport. And we had Violet Asiko from Flown Initiative. She's a program officer at Flown Initiative. She was assisted by Nerika Kogoro, CEO and design lead at Abiria, Elizabeth Njoki, who's a Matatu owner, and Amrita Gupta, the program director, research advocacy and communications at ZAD and SACA. The overview of this session, the session being Women as Investors in Public Transport, was the conversation engaged women who have invested in the transport sector that is majorly male dominated. They shared their personal stories and experiences. Key pointers in this session were women would like to invest in the more formal areas of the transportation industry as taxi cabs and boda bodas, where you are dealing with only one employee as compared to the public transport system, which is rather informal and where one would be dealing with multiple people. Another point is that there's a dire lack of social capital that is supportive of women who are keen to invest in the transport and mobility sector. And the 3rd key point from this session is that from the policy side, there was no obvious gap in the formulation of policies that support or encourage women to participate and invest in the mobility and public transport sector. Our 4th session for today was Fail Fast, which I led that session, and I was joined by Constant Kapp from Urban Planner, Marita Walther from Electric Mobility Entrepreneur, and Edward Mbogo, I beg your pardon, who is a technology entrepreneur. The overview on this is that this session engaged entrepreneurs and transport professionals in sharing about the failures and learnings that they have experienced in innovating and working with the mobility and public transport sector. And the key pointers from this session One, resilience is key if you're to succeed at anything. Every failure that you experience is a learning that you gain. Two, when it comes to matters urban planning, it's important to engage the public sector as early as possible, as well as have a good understanding of the policies and laws that govern the land. Three, do not overpromise your customers, stroke clients, what it is that you can deliver. And four, carry out your research with the end user. Our fifth session today was sustainable public transport. What does socially just public transport look like? Sustainable public transport, what does socially just public transport look like? And we had Constant Cup leading this particular session with the following panelists assisting. This is Dayala, Assistant Professor at the University of Jordan, Ahmad Zayad, urbanist at the Mayor's Office of the Greater Amman Municipality, Ronya Shifa, Programs Manager, Frederick Albert Stiftang, Jordan, and Geoffrey Muhaire from Makerere University. The overview for this was that this session is focused on the characteristics of social just public transport and how this really looks in practice. Now, key points from this, from Kampala, Uganda. A research project was shared and was investigating how to bring sanity to the chaotic boda industry in Kampala. One major suggestion was for the government to introduce riding schools and make it mandatory for any new rider to attend the riding courses to enable them to get a riding license. Two, research outcomes for the mobility for her project were also shared. The project's aim was to understand urban mobility from an intersectional lens with focus on the city of Amman. One of the recommendations was to create and provide a walkability map. One of the recommendations was to create and provide a walkability map. Our sixth session, and the final session actually for today, is Moving the Wheels of Change during COVID-19. And this was led by Amrita Gupta, the Programs Director, Research Advocacy and Communications at Azad and Saka. And the panelist was Paridi Yadav. We actually just spoke to them a few minutes ago. And the overview for this is that the Azad Foundation presented about its flagship project, Women with Wheels, where they enabled poor women to earn a living by training them to become professional chauffeurs. This presentation touched on how the organization adapted to remain relevant during the pandemic. Now, some of the key points from this were Azad Foundation was able to upskill their female drivers by enrolling into the English e-classes. And two, the Azad drivers also provided community support by identifying vulnerable families and delivering food relief directly to homes through a mobile application. That has been an overview of what has gone on today, this being the third and last day of our conference. Now, before I give my closing remarks, I'd like to invite the Executive Director for Flown Initiative, Naomi Mwaura, to give us her closing remarks. Naomi?
Thank you, Becky. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by thanking all of you for your commitment and active participation in this conference. Our 3-day deliberations, we've heard from incredible speakers and we've been rewarded with some stimulating and thoughtful ideas to reflect on going forward. It is by openly discussing our efforts, successes, and failures that we can learn from each other and collectively move forward. I would like to thank our Women in Transport members, participants from government, research organizations, universities, to civil society for their active engagement and to encourage all of us to carry the work forward. The conference has enforced the importance of sustainable transport and has shown us that it is a shared global task. I hope you're leaving the conference with a renewed sense of purpose and a greater sense of what we must do to accelerate our efforts in building an inclusive, sustainable, reliable, and safe transport system on the continent. To this end, we will be compiling key takeaways, identified gaps and synergies. A conference report will be shared to you on email and on our website in the coming weeks. Lastly, I would like to thank our partners, Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, TUMI, GIZ, Frederick Ebert Foundation, International Transport Workers Federation, Vectors, FIA Foundation, UNEP, Volvo Research and Educational Foundation, the World Bank, DFID High Volume Transport Applied Research, Henrik Boll Foundation, and UN Habitat for their support in hosting this year's Women in Transport Africa Conference. As FLON's vision moving forward is to support a regional collective collaboration with organizations and individuals to further build momentum and energy towards making public transport the preferred mode of transport and workplace for women and vulnerable groups. As FLON, we are inspired, and we are looking forward to working together to addressing the social inclusion challenges in the public transport industry and deliver sustainable change. I thank you all for your attention. We look forward to seeing you next year, hopefully in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Naomi. And this brings us to the end of the 2020 Women in Transport Africa Conference. I hope this has been informative to you as it has been to me. Thank you so much to you, our distinguished guests that have joined us from all over the world. We are truly grateful and very, very, very humbled for creating a part of your time to share your time and experiences with us. Would like to thank you. I would like to say a big thank you to our keynote speakers, our moderators, our panelists, and anybody, all our speakers for their input. Our partners, as Naomi has also mentioned them one by one. Thank you very, very much. Now, thank you, FLON Initiative, for this platform, like I said, that continues to help pave way for a more inclusive and equitable public transport system in Africa. And I personally would like to thank some of the persons that have made this this session quite easy to run through, and also, you know, made everything possible. We have Andrew in our IT team, we have Abba, we have Naomi, we have Victoria, and the entire FLON Initiative team for a job well done. Now, if you haven't filled our survey questions, kindly remember to do so after this webinar, as it will pop up on your screen. Click on the link at the chat stream and fill it. We will be so, so grateful. And thank you so much for continuing to keep us company. I've been your host, Mbeki Mwalimu, and I must say it's been an absolute pleasure. I want to leave you with the words of Geoffrey Muhaire from Makerere University. Let's get out of the office and into the field. See you next time.